Hi, Mindy. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
I am so well and so excited to dive in with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Super excited to have a conversation with you as well. So, yeah, today we're going to talk about how to rewire our brain, and yeah, interesting topic. And before I get jump into the topic, I'd love to know more about yourself, like how you being a coach, you're an entrepreneur. How did you come up with the journey?
I have coached, taught, mentored my entire adult life, been an entrepreneur since my early 20s. And so it's just really second nature for me. It's always I've always been the person that people have come to. Like
Yeah,
they tell me too much. I'm always the person people overshare with
yeah,
and come to me asking for guidance, advice, that kind of a thing. The kind of coaching I do, I don't give advice
right.
because I know you have all the answers, but that has been people I have always just had that sort of energy where people have come to me and wanted to know what I thought and the things that I had done. So it
Mm.
was a really natural progression to just eventually move right into one-on-one coaching with clients. That's where I see the biggest transformation and have the most fun.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, like you found your calling, which is a great thing. Like a lot of people still figuring out like what they want to do, like how to inspire people. But actually, it's a great news. Like you found your thing and you're inspiring people. And yeah, like interesting to talk about, which is rewiring our brain. Like how did you come up with the topic? And I'd love to know more about that.
So about maybe it's 8 years ago now, I was at this shift in my life from one style of coaching.
Okay.
I led a large sales team, and so I was training and teaching and coaching this team all the time. And my sales division closed, and
Right.
so I was presented with this opportunity to do something else. And in that moment, I also realized that I had some habits and some beliefs
Yeah.
that were keeping me. I was very successful. However, the track that I was on was not sustainable. I was tired, real tired. I was believing that I needed to hustle all the time. The biggest belief that I held was rest is lazy. And so that is just no good to believe that rest is lazy. We all are worthy of rest and deserve rest. And rest, actually, I know now, breeds productivity, it breeds creativity. Like rest is the key because that's when we can integrate and download and all the good stuff. So when that happened, and I realized I had these habits and beliefs, I started digging into habits. How does our brain work? What about neural pathways and creating new neural pathways? And that was the beginning of a forever love affair with our brains and rewiring them and limiting beliefs and how do we get to release them. And so we literally can rewire our brains. We can create new neuro pathways.
Yeah.
What happens is we think we can't. We think this is how it is. Where life is coming at us and it's not working for us. And so we think a thought over and over again. It becomes a belief, an I am statement, and
Yeah.
then we create habits to prove it. So if your thoughts are empowering and your I am statements are empowering and expansive, then your habits are great. However, we all have those thoughts that can become habitual and become I am statements that are disempowering, like I'm overwhelmed, I'm too old, I'm a terrible time manager, I'm too young, just those things. And then we prove it to
Yeah.
ourselves because that's how spectacular you are. You're this beautiful automated machine. And I tease that we can use that for good or we can use it for evil, right? Like
Yeah.
which direction do we want to go and what life do we want to create?
Yeah, the mindset and the mind is such a key for our success, failure, everything. Right now, I'm dealing with my mind battle last I've been 6, 7 weeks because I've been really ill. and they put me on steroid medication. And once you have a higher doses of steroid medication, your mind's not with you. Your hormones, they create new hormones for you. So your
Okay.
hormones up and down. Like even though you try to control your thoughts, you cannot control it. Sometimes you feel like you're hopeless. Sometimes you feel like depressed. And 90%, 99% of things was right for my life, but I feel like 1% is not right, and my eyes was keep on going on the same place, and all day is get ruined by because of the negative thoughts I had. It
Mm.
just I had like a little ear infection because of the medication. It made me such a big thing. Like I felt like it's end of the world. I felt like it's so many things. I'm gonna lose my hearing forever. This thing, that thing, it led to something like a ear cancer. I don't know. So many things my
Yeah.
head had went through. Like when you mentioned like neurological things, like when they spread out like a spider webs everywhere. One thing lead to another. One negative thoughts can destroy all of the positivity in there. So let's talk about that. How do we actually reprogram the mind then? How we can be more positive and more excited what we can bring on to the world?
First, I want everyone to know that most of our brains focus on the negative. It's
Yeah,
just it's how we're wired. It's a protection.
yeah,
And so what happens is our brains are like Velcro for negativity and Teflon for positivity. So
mm,
well, a positive things happens and we're like, oh, great, next positive thing, right? We move on. A
sure,
negative thing happens and we become laser focused. And then we go, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if that happens? So we are wired this way. So there's nothing wrong with anyone. Like if you're
it's a normal,
recognizing
yeah,
this, yeah, if you're recognizing this
yeah,
about yourself, great, because now you also get to recognize that you can start to rewire that. So your brain deletes, distorts, and generalizes based on your beliefs.
mm,
So if you believe you must hustle 24/7, if you believe you must, and then you fill in the blank, your brain will filter all the proof counter to that out. It'll filter
yeah,
it out. So for you, you said you got a small ear infection and then you went to like, okay, ear
yeah,
cancer. Like, it just went to like worst case scenario. Any proof that you saw to show that like it's okay, buddy, like let's just take a breath, could this happen on some, yes, and right,
right,
like more likely than not, here's what's going to happen next. And so this is how our brain shifts. This is the filter. So many bits of data come at us at
mm,
one time. Let's say it's 60 to 80,000 bits of information are coming at us.
yeah,
Our brain processes 5 to 7.
oh wow,
Yes. So we have to have some sort of filtering mechanism to save our head from becoming that blow up emoji, right? That
yeah,
one where the head's exploding. So it starts to just delete, distort, and generalize, delete, distort, and generalize. It also, your RAS, your reticular activating system, will only show you what's in your consciousness. So anything that you've got going on that you're like, okay, this habit, this thought, I don't want to think this anymore. You get to start asking yourself, well, what do I want to think instead? The moment we take the unconscious conscious, the filter will start to shift. So the moment we take a thought captive, contrast has showed us all the things we don't want,
yeah,
right? We see that every day. We know other people have shown us how we don't want to act. We see contrast all the time. So if we know what we don't want, we really do know what we do want. And so we can just in little steps, maybe we just want to start taking this one thought captive, this thought that I'm not good enough for this, or people won't listen to what I have to say, or whatever it is. We want to just start there with this one thought. When this thought comes up, we get to say, okay, this is just a habit.
yeah,
Like it's not true. It's a habit. So I'm going to start shifting this habit. I'm going to recognize it's a habit, and I'm going to say, I see you thought, I hear you thought, and we're done. We're not going to pretend like we're not thinking it.
yeah,
This is Your brain doesn't think in don'ts. So if you've ever told a small child, don't spill the milk, don't spill the milk, right? Boom, the milk,
They
the
do that
milk
straight
goes
away.
in.
Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
all they heard was spill the
Spill
milk,
the milk.
spill the milk, spill the milk.
Yeah.
It's the same thing if I said, whatever you do, don't think of a pink elephant. Like, no pink elephants, don't think of a pink elephant. Well, almost everyone's thinking of a pink elephant.
Big
So
elephant.
instead of getting into this battle, this habit battle, even if it's a habitual thought, instead of saying, don't think that way, don't think that way, we get to say, okay, I see you thought, and I'm moving my attention. We're not pretending like it didn't happen because it happened. You're habituated in it.
Yeah.
You're also powerful enough to go, okay, I see you. And you're like, I'm blessing and releasing you. Goodbye. And I'm moving my attention to, I'm the type of human who can be visible. Whatever the thought is, you get to start shifting it. Now, if your thought is, I have no money, so I just want to give you like some stair stepping too. So if the habitual thought is like, I'm broke, I'm broke, I'm broke, and the thought comes up, and instead of like being like, don't say that, because you look at your bank account and you're like, well, I am,
I am broke.
right?
Yeah.
You get to then say, okay, but this belief that this is who I am, right? I am broke. Like, no, broke is a circumstance.
Yeah.
You don't have to embody the circumstance any longer. So, okay, this thought habit comes up. I get to then say, and I'm the human who can start generating revenue. I'm the human who can start allowing other streams of income in. Now, notice I didn't say I'm a millionaire. For some people, that jump of a level will work.
Yeah.
For most, it won't.
It's not because their belief system is not there, right?
Exactly. So if you stair step that belief system, if you start proving to yourself that you can prove things to yourself and rewire your brain, you start building your self-esteem, you start building that self-confidence, then you're going to start deleting, distorting, and generalizing based in those beliefs. It'll start to open and expand for you. Here's the beauty. If we are talking about income and revenue and you wanting to bring more in, the moment you decide to be the human who is able to generate more income, you will start to see proof. You'll start to see things that you couldn't see before because your filter was deleting, distorting, and generalizing to protect you. So your head didn't.
Yeah. So
right?
true. Yeah.
So powerful. So powerful.
Yeah, I experienced that as well. Like, even though I was making 20 grand a month in a profit, some months we are doing a low, like let's say 15, and all of a sudden I started to feel like I'm a failure and like all negative thoughts comes in. Then I looked through my balance sheet and like what's the previous years was like a 200,000. I was like an averaging like a 20 months at 20 grand because a couple of months I didn't actually work. So I was like, if I can work and I make 20 grand, why am I feeling like a failure? How many people in the earth are actually making that kind of money? Compared to that, like I'm top 1% of like earning ratio and everything else. And I'm feeling like I'm coming from, if I look through like 10 years back, I was only making £100 a week and working 60 hours. My first job was £100 a week. And I was working 60 hours in a restaurant. I was a dishwasher guy. So compared to that, where I am, is like a day and night difference. Why am I calling myself a failure? All negative thoughts comes in, and because of the negative thoughts comes in, if I'm going to for like a presentation of my products or services, I feel like I don't believe in the services anymore. I feel like that person not gonna buy or I can't bring them any value. Then I have to shift my mindset and come to like what I can do. All of my happy clients, all of them clients I got results for, then start to shift that change and being more positive. So sometimes it comes like even though you're a positive person, you meditate and you practice positivity. Sometimes in a common that time, you feel like you're a failure, you feel like you're negative thoughts people in, but you have to go look back and where you come from and what's happened good things with you. Then you actually have like the gratitude moment, right?
You
Gratitude is an
also,
important one.
yes, you also get to remember that you are evolving and that when your brain throws up something like failure to you, when that it's a protection. This is, your brain wants to keep you in the known. It wants to keep you, it wants to keep you in the same. And so it wants to protect you. Is that, like I say that in air quotes, right? One of the reasons that we will go to failure in our mind is, what meaning have we given? So if you're consistently making $20,000 months and then you jump down to a $15,000 month, the meaning arbitrarily that you've decided is, oh, that's failure.
Yeah.
And it isn't, right? Like it's just a meaning that you've given it. So you get to assign a different meaning. When we put that up there, like this is a practice I do with my clients. So we have this sticky note and it says, failure is when I go from 20,000 to 15,000 in 1 month. That means failure. Okay, well, what else could it mean that's more empowering for you? And while I don't hate failure, because failure is fuel for the future. If we're not failing, we're not trying, we're not growing, right? As much as nobody wants to fail, we want to fail fast and fail forward. And so failure gets to be fuel. We can call it something else. Like it's the name failure that makes us go, right?
Makes it all negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's really just learning and growth and ebbing and flowing. And so the new meaning that we could give to the $15,000 month is, you took a break. You had something go on. You are still flush. Like that is some serious cash flow, right? We could give no meaning to the fluctuation. Now, if it happens 3 months in a row, then we get to revisit and we get to say, am I showing up differently? Is the market changing? Is something changing? Does it matter? Is my profit margin high enough that a $15,000 month is just as good as a $20,000 month? Can I shift profit margins? We get to make it mean whatever we want. And that's where we don't realize how powerful we are, is that we just assign meanings that are disempowering to us right away. Boom. This means this. This person didn't say hello to me when I walked in the room. This means they're mad at me. They don't want to be my client anymore. No, it means they didn't see you. It means they have a million things on their mind too. It means a million things that could be empowering for you. And we get to start learning the practice of taking our thoughts captive and thinking a greater thought for ourselves.
Yeah, we come to the conclusion, isn't it? Like, what are the people thinking about us? Or like, even though like the illness I said, like I come to the conclusion is a ear cancer, because no valid reason for it. I haven't got checked out. I haven't done anything. It just some online research led me through like everything nowadays. If you Google something, it leads to some kind of cancer.
Don't do that.
Yeah, so sometimes you want to know like what homemade remedies and all that, but your brain tend to be like, what's the worst case scenario you're gonna look at? It is really, really bad, and I know like people should avoid that, but at the same time, you do that.
It's okay if you want to go. Here's a great practice as well. If your brain is the kind of brain that goes to the worst case scenario, go there and get it over with, and then say, okay, here's the worst thing that could happen. Now that I've decided this is the worst thing that could happen, okay, that's done. I've decided this is the worst thing that can happen. Now I'm going to show up with plan B and plan C and plan D. And if the worst thing happens, I already know what it's going to be. Like it's okay if that's where you want to go to.
Yeah.
It's not staying in the worst thing's going to happen. It could, and it very well could not. And so who do you want to be? This is the perfect segue into who are you being and who do you want to be? So we can muscle our way through something with action. We can continually tell ourselves like, try harder, do more, be better. We can create habits even to show up in a way. The secret sauce is the identity that we embody. And this is where so many of us don't realize how powerful we are. We very quickly will embody the identity of someone who's overwhelmed or someone who's a failure, right? We will embody that. We'll create habits to prove those things to ourselves. What you get to do is create a more expansive identity that allows you to grow and step into and continue to, I call it casting votes for the future that you want. So a question that I have my clients ask themselves all the time is, who am I being? Am I being the person that believes the worst case scenario will happen? Or am I being the person who acknowledges there's a worst case scenario and I am finding other pathways? Because this is how you get to, because people will say, well, this is rational, like it's logical, this could happen. Yeah. And the world could end tomorrow, right? I mean, yeah.
Anything could happen.
And who do you want to be right now? You want to be the person who's deciding that this is it? Or do you want to be the person who's like, okay, well, I'm going to go out kicking and screaming. Like, I am going to continue to cast votes in the direction of a soul-aligned business, an extraordinary life, until I absolutely can't. We get to want change more than we fear it. That's it. Want it more than you fear it. And who are you being? Are you being the person who wants it more or fears it more? And here's the beauty. There's no shame or guilt in being the person who fears it more. You just get to do a gut check, right? Okay, I'm being the person who fears it more. Is this who I want to continue to be? Like love yourself. Be gracious to yourself. Get curious. What's stopping me from being the person who wants it more than I fear it?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, Mindy, so let's talk about like if someone comes to you and they need help in their mindset or rewiring their brain, what kind of steps do you take like if you're helping someone?
Absolutely. I do lots of limiting belief busting. So if you're not, who do you want to be? Well, I want to be an entrepreneur who creates $20,000 in revenue every month. Okay, great. So when you know what you want, then we do some very strategic, logical reverse engineering. Okay, well, what do you get to believe about yourself in order to be that person? What sort of, because we're in the be, do, have business. We get to be the person who creates the $20,000 in revenue. We get to do the things that they would do, actions they would take, and the fun that they would have, $20,000 in revenue. And then we get to have the $20,000 in revenue. It's not, the world does it backwards. The world says, once I have a business that creates $20,000 in revenue, then I'll do the things, then I'll be that person. Be that person first. Start to create the container for that success. So that's the first step. Then the next step is, what is stopping you from being the person who creates that container? And then we dig into the limiting beliefs. And I have a gift of really hearing the words that you're using to dig into, okay, here's a limiting, I can already hear where the limiting beliefs are coming from. And so then we go in and dismantle those. We reframe, we rewire. Okay, what would you like to believe instead? And how do you get to start casting votes towards this more empowering belief instead?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
we are coming to the end of this podcast, Mindy. So those who's listening, if anyone interested to learn more about you, your program, where's the best place to find you?
The best place to find me is my brand new limited series podcast. And it's at mindihuebner.com/podcast.
All right. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing your valuable lesson as well. And I learned so much things from you as well. And I wish you best of luck with your personal life and career. And I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
And you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So that's a wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I hope you got some value from it. So those who are interested learning more about Mindy, go check out our podcast. I'm going to leave the link on the description and you can check that out too. So until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.